My neighbor dumped her 6 kids at my door for an emergency, so I called child services. I live in a small cul-de-sac where everyone knows everyone, and my neighbor Amber has a habit of pushing her kids onto other people. She has 6 kids, from a baby to a 7-year-old. Yesterday around 3 p.m., my door started getting hit with hard knocking. I peeked out and saw Amber, so I stayed quiet. The knocking turned into banging, and she started yelling my name. I opened the door, and she rushed into a fast speech. "Emergency! Cab's waiting! I'll be back Sunday!" Then I saw all 6 kids behind her with bags. I said, "No, I can't watch them." She kept backing away. "Please, just this once." I grabbed her wrist and said, "Take your kids." She pulled free and ran to the black cab. The door slammed, and the cab took off. I stood there with 6 kids on my porch, shocked. The baby started crying. The 7-year-old looked at me and said, "Do we go inside?" One toddler wandered toward the street, so I scooped him up and brought everyone into my house. I locked the door and stared at the bags like they were a prank. I gave the kids snacks and water and tried to calm the baby down. Then I waited 40 minutes, watching the street, hoping Amber would come back. Nothing. I texted her, "You have 10 minutes to come get your kids or I'm calling child services." No reply. I called her twice and got voicemail. The third time she answered, sounding annoyed. "What?" I said, "Come back right now. I'm not keeping your kids." She said, "You're being dramatic. I'm already out of the city." I told her to turn around. She said, "Drop them at Maryland's if you don't want them." Maryland is older and not well enough for 6 kids. I said, "She can't." Amber said, "Then you're watching them. I'll be back Sunday," and hung up. I called Maryland anyway. She said, "Amber called me too." I said no. That was the moment I realized Amber had no plan at all. I called child services and told them my neighbor left 6 kids at my house and refused to return. They said a social worker would come soon. After I hung up, I walked the kids back onto my porch and pointed at Amber's house. "Is your mom inside?" The 7-year-old shook his head. I went over anyway and knocked, then rang her bell, then knocked again. Nothing at all. Her driveway was empty and her curtains were shut. I took a quick photo of the time on my phone and the empty driveway because I could already hear her saying I made this up. Back inside, the baby's diaper leaked onto my arm and one of the toddlers dumped a whole cup of water on my floor. Another kid kept asking if they were sleeping on my couch. The 7-year-old whispered, "She does this a lot. She says people have to help." While I waited, the kids kept asking where their mom was. The baby wouldn't stop crying, and one of the little ones started crying too. A county van pulled up, and a woman walked to my door with a clipboard. I set my phone on a shelf and hit record because I knew Amber would lie. The social worker, Patricia, showed her badge and asked what happened. I explained everything clearly. Patricia checked the kids, looked through their bags, and called Amber on speaker. It rang and went to voicemail. Patricia tried again. Same thing. Patricia's face got serious and she said, "We have to take them into temporary care until we reach their mother." The 7-year-old started crying hard. One toddler clung to my leg. I helped Patricia buckle the baby into a car seat because she was squirming and screaming. Then Patricia guided them into the van with their bags, one by one. When the doors closed and the van drove off, my porch was silent. I stopped recording, trimmed the clip, and texted Amber, "County Services has your kids. Call them now." My phone blew up with her calls. I declined them. Then the texts came. "Answer me. What did you do? Fix this." A new number called, and a woman started yelling, "I'm Amber's sister. What is wrong with you?" I said, "She abandoned 6 kids on my porch." The sister snapped, "She had an emergency." I asked, "What emergency?" Silence. Then she started talking about how I ruined things, so I hung up. Not long after, Marilyn knocked on my door looking awkward. She said Amber was crying and begging her to get me to undo it. I asked, "Where was Amber really going?" Maryland hesitated and said, "She mentioned a spa weekend with friends." The next morning, Amber showed up at my door with red eyes and messy hair and started pounding again. She yelled, "You're crazy! You could have just watched them!" I opened the door a crack and said, "I told you no. You ran anyway." She said, "They kept me for hours. Interviews, home checks, all of it. I missed everything because of you." I said, "Good. Next time, hire a sitter." She tried to shove the door wider and I held it firm. I looked her in the eye and said, "Don't ever leave your kids here again." And I shut the door. Now my neighbors are saying I went too far with that call. Was I wrong?